Welcome in to the Big Hitters Only podcast. We're recording on Tuesday, September 10th at 9:46 a.m. Remember to rate, review, subscribe, follow Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. I have a special guest today, new UNC football color analyst, Jauch is our guest. He is doing a bunch of games this year for the Tar Heel Sports Network. What's going on, Joe?
Hey, what's going on, Ross? Thanks for having me on. Greatly appreciate it.
And Joe was a wide receiver for UNC and part of Mac Brown's first recruiting class in 1988, signed in 88 for the 1988-89 season. That's correct, right?
Yeah. Played at UNC 88 through 91. Was started for 3 years there alongside Corey Holiday. So Corey saw a lot more passes than I did, and then spent a lot of time, as I like to say, being a devastating downfield blocker for Natron Means, and
Love
back
it.
in the day, and then got the opportunity. Got drafted by the Hamilton Tire Cats in the CFL. Played 5 years in the CFL in Hamilton, and then got traded up to Saskatchewan, and then finished up my last year in Montreal. So, yeah, just sort of been a son of a football coach. My dad actually is getting inducted into the CFL Hall of Fame this Friday. So I'm heading down to Hamilton, Ontario, where the Hall of Fame is, our whole family, and looking forward to seeing him be honored as the fifth all-time winningest coach in the history of the Canadian Football League.
So your dad coached Canadian football and you played
Yeah,
Canadian football?
yeah,
Man,
yeah. My dad,
well,
head coach, and so it's pretty funny story. I was playing in Hamilton, and coach called me into the trainer came up to me and said, "Hey, Coach Southern wants to see you at his office," and that's never a good thing right before practice when the coach calls you into his office. And I said, "Oh, what the heck? What's going on?" And long story short, my dad was the head coach at Saskatchewan, and he said, "I just want to let you know we traded you." I said, "Traded me?" I said, "Where'd you trade me to, Coach?" He said, "Well, your dad just called and traded to you to Saskatchewan." And so I got the opportunity to play for my dad in Saskatchewan for a year and a half, which was a lot of fun.
that's awesome. We'll get into the Canadian football. I'm very interested in that, like the subdivisions of pro football. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. So we'll talk a little Tar Heels, get to know you a little bit. I want to show you this real quick.
There it is.
Joe
Love it.
gave me, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm holding up a Yak Talk coffee mug. I drink out of it, a couple times a week.
Nice. Nice.
Powered by Alcoa Mortgage. Nothing like drinking out of a mortgage coffee cup. But
That's it, baby.
I was Joe's 400th follower, I believe, on Twitter,
Yes.
like 2 or 3 years ago. And you DM me and sent me a message and say, "Hey, I want to send you something for being the 400th follower." And you got my address. And a couple weeks later, I had a nice coffee mug, and it made it to Ann Arbor, and it made it back to Greensboro, and it's a great mug. And I always kind of think of you. I've never met you. This is the first time talking to Joe, but he sent me. It was very cool. Sent me a coffee mug, so that's awesome.
Hey, that's all you have to do, Ross, is say whenever anybody asks you about that coffee mug, you just say, "It's Yak Talk, baby." That's all they need. That's all they need to
Yeah.
know.
So actually, let's get into your career first. So just with the UNC sports analyst stuff, you did some games off and on the last couple years, I believe,
Yeah.
and then now you're more in a permanent position. You're calling. You say 4 games this year for Tar Heel Sports
Six
Network.
six games.
6. Okay, so Bryn's on the other 6.
Correct. So they split it in half. I'm doing six and Bren's doing six.
Okay, so how'd that come to fruition? Like, they reach out to you? It just made sense. Like, how does that split happen? Because we had Bryn on the show too, so it's kind of cool we had
Yeah.
both y'all on. How'd that kind of work out?
Well, so I started doing color for Liberty University. I live in Lynchburg, Virginia, and 2018 I started doing color for ESPN, ESPN Plus with Liberty University for all their home games, and so that's sort of how I got my foot in the door in the broadcasting booth, and then Lee Pace really I think had heard that I've been doing it, and he he had reached out to me for some potential sub games, and so
Okay.
long story short, I did my first game was the crazy game at App State. Brian Simmons had some other obligations; he couldn't make it, so he had to miss a couple of games, and so they brought me in, and I did the App State game, the crazy one that was like
Yep.
64-61, and the wild one. So that was my first experience of doing a UNC football game, and then did the Virginia game, did a Pitt game. So over the last couple of years, I've done a few games, and then they reached back out to me this year with Brian taking the job, Brian Simmons taking the job on Mac's staff, and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come in and do 6 games," and then obviously they got Brent Renner for the other 6 and split it up, and just to sort of see how it goes. So I can't be more excited about doing it. I love doing it. I got the opportunity to do the Minnesota game as a home opener, and then as the opening game of the season, and the home opener, last week against Charlotte. So it is literally a dream come true for me.
Are you still doing Liberty TV games?
Yeah, so I do 6 UNC games and then 4 Liberty games. So I've actually got the Liberty game this weekend versus UTEP.
So the schedule kind of you worked it out where
Yeah.
you're doing the UNC games when
Yeah.
Liberty's off. Awesome. So what do you think you bring to the analyst approach? Like, what do you, when you enter a game, like what are you trying to bring? How are you working with Jones? Get into kind of that mental approach of calling a game as a color analyst versus kind of Jones's role as play-by-play.
Yeah, I think what I do bring is, my dad was a coach. I understand the game real well, inside and out. I've coached college football. I coached at Liberty for a couple of years as a high school defensive coordinator for 7 years. I think I understand both sides of the ball. And then most importantly, my passion has always been Carolina football. And Carolina football has opened so many doors for me. The University of North Carolina has opened up so many doors for me. And so I was in the dark days of Mac Brown when he first got there. We went 1-10 for my first 2 years. And so when you pour, myself, my teammates, coaching staff, everybody pours their guts into turning a program around, and then you watch that happen, you become extremely attached to that program, not just while you're there, but after you leave. And it's been like that since my days of playing in Canada, falling the heels after my career was done there, and then raising 4 kids now that have all become, huge Tar Heel fans. My wife graduated from Virginia Tech. She's a Hokie. She stood zero chance of bringing anybody in of my kids to be Hokie fans. So she's jumped on board with us. She'll say she's still a Hokie, but boy, she's in that Carolina blue. And when we head to the Carolina game, so it's just, and then I think a big part of mine is the personality of I try to interject a lot of humor and enjoy what we do, and just bring maybe a little bit of a different angle to the booth, and try to be well rounded in what I have to do from an analyst standpoint.
Yeah, it's perfect when you know the game, you play the game, coach the game, play at a professional level, so you understand all that aspect, and then you can also have the personality, also bring the enthusiasm, and you add the passion of just caring about the team and the players, and kind of, because when you're working for a Tar Heel Sports Network, when you're calling it, you're essentially employed by the university. Like, you're a fan. Like, you are supposed to be a fan and call it from a UNC perspective, so it helps that way to have the passion. Funny thing, like when you marry someone who's a fan of another team, like obviously you married a Virginia Tech grad, no chance of your kids being anything but UNC fans. I got a buddy, Clint Winslow. His wife is an NC State fan, and he is a diehard Carolina fan. He's at every game, Blue Zone, traveling across the country to games. And then you see the daughters are in NC State red occasionally, and his daughters are in UNC blue, and it's split. They're still young enough where they can go either way. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You got to get your girls in Carolina blue, but the mom is still pushing the Wolfpack. So it's kind of interesting dynamic there. Myself and my girlfriend, both of us are UNC fans, so we don't have that issue. But it's an interesting dynamic when you get 2 different fan bases going against each other. And the kids are the deciding factor on where they need to go.
She said from the beginning, like I told her, like this is a non-negotiable. There's certain things that are non-negotiables, and so like the kids, my kids are die-hard Tar Heel fans all the way. Now we still like the Hokies. Like we'll if we're not playing Carolina, we'll cheer for the Hokies, but they're die-hard Carolina fans all the way.
You're in a beautiful area up there.
She couldn't compete because I take the kids in the locker room every once after the game, and they're meeting Mac Brown, and they're getting all the inside. She's like, I can't compete with this. So it's like, when in Rome kind of deal.
Yeah. Like, you brought it too much passion, too much access, too much, undenying love for the Tar Heels. You're in a beautiful area up there with being pretty close to Blacksburg, right? And then Lynchburg, man, that Southwest Virginia area is awesome.
Yeah, it is. It is beautiful. Like I said, I coach. I was on San Martigliano's staff at Liberty University for a couple of years, and we really settled down and got in the mortgage business back in 2000, and still had the opportunity to coach high school football and be around. But this area right here is, we've been blessed beyond measure. We live on 45 acres out in Forest, Virginia, and got pickleball courts and all kinds of good stuff. So we've been extra, and it's only a 2 hour drive from Chapel Hill, so we can make it down to a lot of stuff. So yeah, we've been very blessed.
Yeah, people don't realize how close kind of the Blue Ridge Mountains are from Greensboro and Chapel Hill area. If you go up through Virginia, like you're right there,
Yeah.
you're pretty close with where Charlottesville is and Blacksburg and Roanoke and stuff. Cool. So what's it like working with Jones? Like how is it navigating working with? I mean, he is a very talented, very prepared play-by-play guy. How do you approach that? I mean, what's it like working with someone like Jones, who now is the man and very experienced there with the Tar Heel Sports Network?
I mean, it's Jones and he has done a fantastic job. He's just so, like you said, so well prepared, so knowledgeable. The way that he speaks in the microphone and his word pronunciation and knowing all the play. I mean, he's just, and then his description is so painting that picture for the viewer in their mind. Does such a fantastic job of it, and then at the same time, he's also got that other side to him where he understands the game. Like when he went from not just from a fan perspective, he understands the details of the game. And then he's got that other side where he's got a good sense of humor about him and knows when to interject that into it a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I think that so far we've been paired very well and and played off of each other very well. And so I felt the other thing too that Jones does is just such a good guy. He's just a good
Hmm.
person and doesn't carry a big ego with him, and he just he makes you feel comfortable. And so when you feel comfortable with somebody and you get in the booth with them and you're just having that conversation back and forth, it's been, once again, I can't say it anymore, but what a dream come true it has been for me, because my passion is Carolina football, and I got my degree in radio and television from UNC. I never thought I'd have the opportunity to actually use it, and now to be beside Jones and Lee Pace, also the Pinehurst Resort sideline report with Lee Pace. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, I couldn't be any happier right now.
Yeah, I want to ask you a Lee Pace question here because I'm actually pretty good friends with him. Work out with him in the mornings for 7 or 8 years in Chapel Hill as part of F3. But a little inside baseball here with Jones. Does he like tell you to like sit out? Like, how's that work when he gets the touchdown call? Because they market that stuff and they cut those clips for the internet and social media and stuff. Is he like, do you just know to lay out on big plays and let him get his whole call in, and then after that's done you jump in? Like, how's that kind of work, to give kind of our listeners a little inside baseball of that booth and how y'all communicate maybe non-verbally for him to get his call in?
Yeah, and that takes some time to figure each other. It's funny. It's a funny story. The first game, I never met Jones before, and the first game we did was at App State, and we got there the Friday night before, and I went out to dinner with him. I said, "Hey, Jones, I'm pretty passionate about Carolina football, and I have a tendency to get a little bit excited. So if I hop in on you, just hit me in the back of the head and tell me to stay out." But he was like, "No, Joe, just be yourself. Just you're fine, right?" Well, maybe that wasn't a great idea, because that game turned into that 64-61 barn burner, and it was, I mean, I'm going crazy in the booth. And then I remember the end of the game, they had to go for two in order to send it into the fourth overtime or whatever it was at that
Yeah.
time. I'd lost track. So many points are being scored. And I think it was Noah Taylor made the tackle at the 1 yard line. And Jones is doing his call. And while he's doing his call, I'm in the booth and I'm slapping the desk as hard as I can. And while he's trying to, he said, I'm yelling, "He didn't get it! He didn't get it!" over and over and over again. And so it was funny. Then Chuck Schrader, who's the
Yeah.
head of Tar Sports Network in Learfield, there, he called me up the next week. He said, "Hey, Joe, they were trying to cut the clips for the highlights, and he said they really had a hard time getting it because you kept jumping in on Jones all the time." And so
Yeah.
he's like, "You did a great job, but if you could hold out a little bit." So I've learned to pull back my reins a little bit, and try to hold out some with him. And over the last couple of games, it's gone very well. You got to let Jones do his thing.
Yeah, but sometimes when the color analyst, like the fan, the former player kind of jumps in, it does create kind of a viral moment. I feel like when
Yeah.
you have kind of the straight laced play guy trying to get it out, and in the background you hear like the fan, the color guy just jumping in and yelling. I think it's an awesome. It can create a viral moment there.
Yeah,
All right,
that happened at the Minnesota game when he missed the field goal. I was standing up there
yeah, yeah.
and he yelled, he said his wide right, he missed it, and I said he missed it. So which was pretty cool. And then it was funny because Jones talked about this, and we had the Mac Brown luncheon the other day and talked about how Minnesota, they missed the field goal right, and the Minnesota guy who's ever in charge of the fireworks, he
Hmm.
decided that the field goal was good, and he pressed that button for those fireworks. And once you press that button, there's no going back. And the fireworks started shooting off, and Jones said, and they're shooting off the fireworks in Minnesota as if the Gophers just won the ball game. And I yelled, "Shoot them off, baby, shoot them off!" And so we've had some good moments together already.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, Lee Pace quickly. Like, I mean, just a good friend of mine. What's it like working with Lee? I mean, he is a professional down there. You always see him in the background on the TV broadcast. You always see him, and he's been doing it for so long. We love Lee. Thoughts on what Lee brings? Obviously, he was your connection to kind of get back into this.
Yeah. I mean, Lee was there when I was playing, and so Lisa was really the reason why I got the opportunity to be able to have to do it at Carolina as the analyst. And Lee's the best. I mean, he's got that. He's laid back and he's just sort of strolling around, but he's always looking for the scoop. All that writer in him is always looking for the scoop, and he does such a good job getting the info from the sidelines, and then he's funny. I mean, he's just a good dude, and he loves that golf. He loves that golf, and he does such a good job writing and all his articles and books that he's written. And so yeah, Lee just is unbelievable. I'm the biggest Lee Pace fan there is out there.
His kind of demeanor and personality fits well because of kind of his role as kind of the reporter, behind the scenes guy, kind of providing intel, and the way he carries himself, I think fits well into a broadcast when you have kind of the two bigger personalities in the booth. All right, let's get into the Tar Heels here. You were at Minnesota, and then you were obviously at the win over Charlotte, UNC 2-0. You played the game, you know the game. I want your thoughts, your initial thoughts right now for UNC 2-0. I think there's a lot we don't know about this team right now. I think we'll find out more against Duke. They have a game against UNC plays Central this weekend, and then JMU, which could be a bigger game. But there's a pretty good chance UNC could be 4-0 heading to Duke. What do you think about this team right now? And then we'll get into a little more particulars.
Yeah, I think you said it, Ross. I think it's the word team, and the thing that UNC's been spoiled's not the right word. They've just done a good job with it. They've had a great run of quarterbacks. I
Yeah.
mean, you go back to Bren Renner and Marquise Williams and Mitch Trubisky and Sam Howell and Drake May, and they've put up such, and then the Fedora years with so much offense that that's sort of what a UNC fan has become accustomed to is great offense, but no defense.
Yeah.
And so they've had some really, really bad defense, some inconsistent defenses, and so what you're starting to see in the hiring of Jeff Collins and the recruiting of some depth at the defensive line position is that they're getting better on the front four. They're able to rotate 8, 9 guys in, and they're becoming better on defense. They give only up 75 yards, I think, something like that, rushing against
Mhm.
Minnesota, 45 against Charlotte, and so they're getting better defensively, and you can see that as a defense as a whole, they're becoming a much better defense. It's allowing them to become a better team. So they may not have, a star quarterback anymore in terms of a guy who's just going to light it up and throw for 35 touchdowns and 4 picks like the Drake Mays and the Sam Howells of the world. But they got a star running back. They got a young offensive line that's only going to get better as the year goes on. Mari Hampton may be the best running back in the country. I mean, if you start looking out there, like he's unbelievable. His over 1,000 yards after contact last year is a phenomenal number. And so you start taking a great running back, an offensive line that's massive, and then at the receive, I think the question mark is that there is in the
Yeah.
secondary a little bit. I think the safeties are really good. I think Huzzy's a really good football player. I see teams trying to go after Marcus Allen a little bit. Caleb Cost in coverage has got to improve because they gave us some big balls downfield. But so overall, they're really, really good. The question mark, I think, is that they don't have that receiver, the Daz Newsome, the Josh Downs, the Tez Walker, somebody like that really poses a threat and can create separation. So somebody in that receiver room, whether that is a Kobe Peso or a Christian Hamilton, a Jordan Ship, somebody in there needs to really step up to create separation, because you can get away with it when Sam Howell and Drake May are throwing the football to you. They'll put that thing in a tight window and they'll make you look good, right? But if your quarterback is not at that level, and Connor Harrell, I really believe, will continue to grow, he'll continue to get better. But right now, that receiver group, I think, is a question mark. They need to create separation. They can do that, and Connor continue to improve. You have an O-line that's going to continue to improve. You got an All-American running back at tailback. Devin Guys comes in the game, and he does a fantastic job. Darwin Barlow's, was hurt this past week, but we get him back. They think very highly of him. So the running back room, I think, is great. I think the quarterback will improve. The offensive line has got the opportunity. So as a team, as a collective team, I think this is you're not going to see the fireworks and the quick scores and all that kind of stuff. But if those receivers can step up and everybody continues to improve, I think this Carolina team has a chance to be very, very good.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I agree. Like, there's not a receiver. We talked about this in a couple other podcasts, reaction podcasts after Minnesota and Charlotte. Like, they don't have a guy who can create separation or take the top off a defense. And we don't have that stud quarterback that can put it in that, in the breadbasket or be super, super accurate. You need more separation to give a bigger window to throw to. And you don't have that deep. UNC's always had a deep threat under Mac Brown. They had Dimey Brown and Tez Walker. Even guys like Josh Downs could create such separation vertically, and that really changes your offense when you don't have that deep threat. And they lack that this year, and so it's going to have to be a more run-based game. And like I said, I mean, like you said, I mean, the running backs are incredible. What does Amari Hampton do in your eyes that's so special? Is it just a physicality, or is there more other than just being fast and strong? Because, I mean, he looked awesome against Charlotte, and in the second half against Minnesota, he was falling forward and gaining 3 or 4 yards per carry. Does he do anything that stands out to you that makes him special outside of the physicality?
Yeah, I mean, I could go on this one for a long time, but the fact that, I look at I think they ran a screen early in the game against Charlotte, and he caught it, and he was turned around backwards, and the guy had him by the legs, and that was a loss of 2 play, and he finds a way to get out of stuff, and he picks up 8-10 yards on the play. And then you look where he stopped at the line of scrimmage. And some of it's the little stuff that goes unnoticed. You get into a 2nd and 8 and he's hit at the line of scrimmage, and he may only pick up 4 yards, but being in 3rd and 4 is a heck of a lot better than being in 3rd and 9. So the physicality of how he runs the football in between the tackles, it's what's so important. And then you see how when he gets hit, he doesn't move, right? His balance when he's like, and that takes his toll on a defense. Like, you start sticking your head in there as a defensive back, as a linebacker, and you feel like you're running into a brick wall, and that guy's bouncing off you, and he's picking up another 6-8 yards. Sometimes he picks up another 10, 12, 14, 20 yards, whatever it may be. And you start realizing in the 3rd quarter and the 4th quarter, like, hey, this ain't a lot of fun tackling this guy anymore. And so, I mean, his strength, his quickness, his speed, and his balance is what has really stood out to me, and it makes him not just a big back on Saturday. He's going to end up being a heck of a back on Sundays.
Is UNC doing anything different with how they're running the ball with this new offensive line, and with just kind of making the running game an emphasis of what they're doing on offense?
Yeah, I think they've become a much more physical team up front. I think that was the whole idea of bringing Chip Lindsey in. When they brought Chip Lindsey as the offensive coordinator, it was like, hey, our quarterback, back Sam Drake, they were running the football too much. I mean, they were taking a lot of shots and taking a lot of beatings, and they're gaining a lot of yards. But I think what Mac realized is that we want to become a more physical line up front with more traditional schemes. You saw them get into the old fashioned I formation a little bit the other day, and were able to just do old school football where you kick out the block down, scoop up to the second level, you kick out the defense end and run right at them. And so I think that physical style of running with a mammoth offensive line. I mean, you look at Tavion Green and Howard Sampson, these guys are massive human beings, and I think they can just swallow people. So the physicality, it wears people down, and it keeps your quarterback from having to take so many hits. Now, that's going to change. That's going to move a little bit because Connor is such a good runner that you could see last week where they brought some option into the game. And so Connor can run the option some and be able to pitch it, which poses a whole different threat and a whole different set of problems for defenses. But Mac has made an emphasis on the toughness of this football team. And I'll be honest with you, Ross, I think what happened at NC State last year at the end of the game is they felt as if NC State, felt as if they had out-toughed UNC. And I think that lit a little bit of a fire under Coach Brown. And some of the comments that were made, by some of the players, coaches on NC State, made them realize, like, hey, no. That's not like the Carolina football. We're not going to be called soft. That's not going to be who we are. And both on the offense and defensive side, they have made a commitment to toughness and not just finesse.
Yeah, and we'll see if that kind of comes to fruition against ACC teams, and then in the last couple games, the 9th game, the 10th game, 11th game of the season, that NC State game, and from a fan standpoint, like that was demoralizing. UNC's performance against NC State in that Thanksgiving weekend game, and it's a rival, but it's also like getting that extra win, and kind of how Drake May went out with that game as well. It was a shock to reality. And I think that's fans put a lot of emphasis on beating NC State, and to come out like that was certainly embarrassing. Okay, on defense, you mentioned Marcus Allen, you mentioned some secondary issues. What's one thing you think they need to get better at from a team's perspective? I know there's some tackling angles. Tackling is always an issue. Is there anything scheme-wise you'd like to see? Because I agree the defensive line is playing a lot better. What is some stuff you think they need to clean up?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that this is the time of the year when people start getting film on everybody. So whatever, you're 2 games in. So as you start getting that film on other teams and other teams that film on you, they can attack where your weaknesses are. And so when you look at that game against Charlotte Carolina tried to bring, and they did a good job of it. Des Evans is an absolute train wrecker. I mean, he did. Javad Ritzie showed up on the stat sheet with the 5 sacks. But, I mean, I'm telling you, Des Evans is the guy who's pouring gasoline all over the ground. And Javad Ritzie is the one just lighting the match. And so, like, they're up front have done really well. And what Jeff Collins decided to do is he's playing a lot of man coverage, and he's trying to put pressure on the quarterback, trying to get hits on the quarterback. Coach Brown talked about that in the post game, about how Tommy Bowden said, hey, taught him, like, the more you get that quarterback down, the more he's not going to like it, the more hits he takes throughout the court. Even if they're not sacks, the more hits he takes, that takes its toll on a quarterback. So you can definitely see that style. However, where do you look at Carolina and what they've given up? What they've given up is explosive plays. And so I believe they had, 7 catches for 230 some yards against Charlotte last week. And so that's the thing, is like, what do you become as the season goes on? And you always have to look at it this way, Ross. The way that I would look at something defensively is, okay, how are we going to hold up against the best? How are we going to hold up? And when you said it a couple times already, how are we going to hold up against a good ACC competition in the passing game, right? If we're giving up explosive plays to a transfer quarterback from Florida, we're giving up explosive plays to a true freshman quarterback that came in at UNC Charlotte. What do we do to make the adjustments when we face even better competition? So I'll be interested to see the path that Jeff Collins decides to take this defense down, because run-wise, their gap control has been fantastic. Amari Campbell's played well. Power Echols, we know, is an outstanding football player, but the gap control by the front 4 has been great. The run fits have been great, so they've stopped the run. It's the explosive plays, I think, is where people are going to try to attack Carolina downfield until they prove that they can stop them.
Yeah, I've been impressed by the run defense, and we can hold teams under 90 yards, under 100 yards, what they've done in both games. Against, Minnesota's didn't have the running back, and but it's still a Big Ten team, and Charlotte, the kind of jury's out on what they really will be, but still holding teams under 100 yards rushing, that will go pretty far, and that carries, and that's impressive. So clean up some explosives, fixing some things on the back end, but you like what you see from Power and Amari. Like I feel good about, a little bit better about linebacker than I thought. Keep those guys healthy, get them some rest, but those guys flying around the backfield and the defensive linemen getting TFLs, it's really good to see after some years where the defense was certainly less than adequate. All right, we're going to get out of here. I said I'll hold you 30 minutes. The clock is at 30. I want to talk pickleball.
Yes.
I'm getting into pickleball. When I went to Michigan for 1 year, I didn't have many friends. I didn't have much to do. And I was like, I'm going to invest in pickleball. I'm going to play a lot. So I was playing like 2 or 3 times a week. I ramped it up in the winter, found an indoor facility called Wolverine Pickleball. And your Twitter says, it says Liberty Football, UNC Football Analyst, mortgages, and pickleball. Elite dancing skills with the people of the people. So, let's see. I mean, I've never asked somebody really about pickleball other than Tyler Hansbrough. How much do you play? What do you play? Why do you love it? How'd you get into it? Let's get into it for a little bit here.
Well, let's start with this. Tyler Hansbrough wouldn't have a chance against me.
He's good.
I'll lay the gauntlet down right now, Tyler. You're more than welcome to bring it on, but you'll go home with your tail tucked between your legs. But yeah, so it was funny. I got into pickleball. My wife and I bought a house, and it had an old dilapidated tennis court on it. And I never played tennis. And so long story short, I heard about pickleball. I had a buddy that played with the CFL that was from Washington where pickleball started. And he said, hey, turn it into pickleball courts. You'll love pickleball. So I turned it into 4 pickleball courts. And we started the league called the JPL, the Jauch Pickleball League. And now we have 16, I got full lights, full lit courts, the whole dog and pony show. And we got 16 guys that show up to my house every Tuesday night, faithfully. We got a full league. We got, I could go down those committees. We got, if you're a member of the league, you get a blue blazer. You get a blue blazer, very Augusta-like. And you get a blue blazer that only members can have. And then we play from 8 o'clock to about 10:30 every Tuesday night. And then I've got a little pool bar. And at the pool bar, a different member brings a meal. And after we're done playing, we sit around. My title is CEO and head bartender. And so we sit around. We have a few Coca-Colas and hang out and then eat a meal. And everybody goes their way. And it's a big time operation. We have a Christmas party. We have a member guest event. We have a band, Ross. We have a band called the Pickle Boys that are made up of members of the league, and they play at the Christmas party. They play on the flatbed trailer at the member guest party, and then they're good. They're really good. We got a competition committee. We got a VP of internal affairs. We got a dog dude, director of game day operations. We got a little bit of, we have a director of spiritual development. It's an operation, Ross. There's no messing around.
I love it.
And they all play for the Silverback Cup. Everybody's playing for the Silverback Cup. And it's called the JPL at Hell's Half Acre is the name of the court. And it's a big time operation. So you are more than welcome to make the drive from Greensboro. It's only 2 hours away. Make the drive from Greensboro. We'd love to have you in, and you can be on the sub list, and we'll bring you in, and you'll have a big time. Nobody goes away from the JPL on a Tuesday night disappointed. I'll tell you that much.
Man, Wednesday morning comes pretty fast there with a couple cocktails after the game. She said 4 courts lit on an outdoor court with a pool and a pool bar.
Yeah,
that's incredible. Deal. So everyone's playing 16 guys, and everyone's playing. You're just rotating through. Is it set teams? Do you have a set partner like throughout the whole season? How's that work?
Yeah. So we have 2 different. So you've got a couple different things going. You have a set partner that you play with for league play. Okay. And then we do a Ryder Cup style thing called the OIC, where you have your Ryder Cup team. Right now, we have a lot of Canadians. There's a lot of Canadians that live in this area, and so there's a bunch of Canadians that are in the league, and so it's a Canada versus U.S. Ryder Cup style right now, with the Canadians on one side and the Americans on the other side, and then that winner of that wins the OIC Cup, which stands for the Old Yeller Cup. Now that's a whole nother story that probably don't have time to share, but So there's a few different championships that go on. There's two divisions. There's the Warm Beer League and the Devil's Knob League, and once again it's a big time operation, Ross.
Why are there so many Canadians in Lynchburg?
Yeah, it's funny because at Liberty University, I think, because I've gotten to be friends with a lot of the hockey guys, and so Liberty University has a good hockey team, and so I know their head coach pretty well. And then some of my buddies, played hockey at Liberty, and so the Canadians have a tendency to track other Canadians, and obviously my connection to Canada and playing in the CFL, is big. So we just all sort of get along. Great dudes to hang out with.
I love it. All right, give us a tip for someone kind of in that 3-0, 3-2-5, 3-5 level to take their game to the next. I'm assuming what do you play at? You play at a 4?
Yeah, 4 between 4 to 4-5. Yeah.
Okay. These are like the duper rankings for pickleball. It's similar to tennis. All right. So someone's at the 3-2-5, 3-5 level. They want to get up to the 3-7-5, 4 level. What are some skills, some techniques, some strategies that you would tell them to work on to add to their game to up their level?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing would be you got to develop a solid drop shot. I mean, your third shot drop has got to become solid. Like if you're just a banger and you're hitting it hard, you're going to have a really tough time because that third shot drop was what gets you to the kitchen line. And if you can get to the kitchen line, your odds of winning go way up. If you don't have a third shot drop and people can keep you back, eventually, the statistics show that you're going to lose 80 to 90% of those plays. When the other team's at the kitchen line, you're back, you got problems. So I would say get that third shot drop down, be able to put that, get to the kitchen line. And then once you get to the kitchen line, be patient in your dinking. Be very patient in your dinking. Wait for the other guy to make that mistake. And once he pops that ball up a little bit high, you got to put him away. You got to be a closer, Ross. It's all about being a closer.
I played for 3 hours in Charlotte on Friday. I was in town for the NC State Tennessee game.
Nice.
And I was telling my partner, I said, don't just slam it. Angle slam it. Positioning slam it. When you slam it, look for an angle. Placement a little bit over power. If you can bring both, that's great, but you got to place the ball rather than just slamming it. What's your strategy? What's your advice for hitting a good third shot drop? It's a tough shot. I was taught like it's a long dink to kind of drop it in there. Do you have any other advice to kind of perfect that third shot drop?
Yeah, make sure that you set your feet. Set your feet and hit the ball when it's out in front of you. Okay, people have to get your feet in position and put the ball, get to the ball when you hit it. Out in front of you. Don't let it get in close to your body and get your feet. Plant and play. That's what I always like to say. Whenever you hit a shot, plant and play.
Yeah, awesome. Dude, I would love to come up and play. I mean, maybe some off weekend when it's, you can get a couple people over there and get in the pool. Man, I love it. We have a backyard here we have room for some pickleball courts. So maybe in the long-term plan here in Greensboro, we may be having some pickleball courts in, but I'm looking for a group to play here as well. Joe, this is awesome, man. I want to talk Canadian football next time we have you on. Maybe in a couple of weeks after a couple more UNC games, we'll have you on to talk Tar Heels. But I appreciate the time. Guys, big hitters only. Joe is a big hitter, and that's what we have. We have big hitters only on the show. Guys, remember to rate, review, subscribe, follow on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Get this show rolling here, bring you this great content with people like Joe Jauch. Joe, we appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Ross. And I really enjoy it. Like, I started listening to your podcast just the other day. I think you just recently started it up, correct?
Yeah. This is episode 8.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I was listening to that. It's great content. I look to have the different guests you have on. It helps me get information, get different angles from people who are UNC football fans and the opportunity to as an analyst, help improve. So I really appreciate what you're doing and enjoy listening to it.
Yeah. I mean, briefly on that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's important. Like you get stuck on one podcast and you get one person's perspective and you get one voice or two voices on certain podcasts. That's all you think about, but you bring in more people like you, people like me, Mike Hardison. You get different angles, different ideas, and different ways to think about UNC football. I think that's important too. And so I'm trying to keep it loose, keep it light, bring on different interesting guests and talk not just football and not just UNC, but also things like pickleball and Canadian football and life and stuff. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
All right, see you, man.